Wear it on the female villain of the novel, she wrote. Looking at the handsome and golden actor in front of me, I really couldn't laugh. Because the novel is B. The heroine died, and the female villain was killed. The sound of an ambulance woke me up. Are you all right? A low, hoarse voice. The owner of the voice lifted me up from the ground. My mind was still clouded, and he took my arm and looked up at it. Thank you, handsome. I couldn't wait to say thank you. He let me go. His pretty eyebrows furrowed. Sybil Hart, what nonsense are you talking about? Who? What winter plum is a horse? The name is a little familiar, but not very impressive. At this moment, a very beautiful woman came up to me and asked, "Are you all right?" I walked to the convenience store downstairs in the community and fell down. What could I do? I shrugged and smiled. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. The woman breathed a sigh of relief. I was scared to death just now, and you can't save people without regard for yourself. Sybil Hart, wait a minute, what are both of these ones talking about? I waved my hand. I'm fine. I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't call. I can't go on because my mouth is sealed. I opened my mouth, but I couldn't make a sound. It was so bizarre that I looked at the two people across from me in horror, and that's when I realized that everything around me seemed to be pressed a static button. Then suddenly the text appeared out of thin air in front of me. Congratulations on getting the virtual player mission experience card. And now you have entered the world of novels. Your mission, to help Betty Shaw, the heroine of the novel, escape danger and survive to be 40 years old. Your identity this time is Sybil Hart, and you can use all the permissions of the character during the mission, and the platform will not interfere. Considering that players are newbies, the platform has arranged the most familiar novels for players. The following rules need to be known before the mission. 1. Do not disclose all information about the mission. 2. Do not end the plot with suicide. The platform is in the experimental stage, and the task reward stacking mechanism will be launched for the players who have been drawn, and the corresponding bonuses and new task experience cards will be obtained for completing the tasks. And if there is any violation, the platform will deduct all the bonuses and permanently disqualify the players. The speed of time between fiction and reality is different, and the real world is seamlessly connected after the mission is over, and the real-time consumption does not exceed 5 minutes, and the platform will ensure that it does not cause trouble to the player's real life. The platform sincerely hopes that players will have a happy and novel experience in this mission trip. Good luck with you, and we'll see you after the mission is over. Wear a book. Come to think of it, I did submit an application form for a virtual experience some time ago. At the time, I thought it was a safety tester for some kind of amusement ride. On the other hand, if you think about it in another way, it's pretty much the same. Sybil Hart, I remember. Tut tut, it is indeed the most familiar novel, because I wrote this. Outrageous family. I have been unemployed at home for a long time, and I have written 2 or 3 novels when I have nothing to do, and this Sybil Hart is the female villain in my first novel. This person has a paranoid possession and love for the male protagonist Hiram Shaw. The only thing that I insisted on from childhood to adulthood was to be by the male protagonist's side. And the male protagonist likes Betty Shaw, the female protagonist of the novel, who is the adopted daughter of Shaw's family. When Sybil Hart knew Hiram Shaw's intentions, he publicized the matter, and Shaw's family was also a leader and face in H City, so he naturally disagreed with the male and female protagonists being together. The female protagonist had a very hazy feeling about the male protagonist at that time, and she didn't want to drag the male protagonist down, and she also wanted to repay the Shaw family. So the family summed up and sent Betty Shaw abroad. That's 5 years. Sybil Hart used his family connections, relying on the fact that the Hart family and the Shaw family were family friends, and Hiram Shaw did not accept and differed. Without understanding, he was engaged to him, half pushed, cut first and then played, and made his own assertions. Hiram Shaw learns 2 things at once. Betty Shaw is back and she is getting married. At the same time, Sybil Hart also learned of Betty Shaw's return to China. She panicked and found Betty Shaw before Hiram Shaw. Betty Shaw was at a traffic light. A child crossed the road and fell, and a large truck turned right not far away, and the child's position happened to be in the blind spot of the truck. So Betty Shaw wants to get the little ones to safety. Sybil Hart saw this, and the evil was born in his guts, and he quickly stepped forward to push Betty Shaw onto the sidewalk. Then, because she did something bad for the first time, she was weak in heart and weak feet. She tripped over herself and fell directly on the sidewalk. Because of the big movement of her fall, the truck master braked in time. However, because Sybil Hart fell into a coma after the fall, Betty Shaw informed Hiram Shaw anyway and called 120. That's the cause and effect of the current scene. Very good. The first time I did a bad thing, I didn't succeed because I was inexperienced. And if I was late, when Sybil Hart developed in the future, I was afraid that the mission would fail as soon as I came in. Sybil Hart, why don't you go to the hospital for a checkup? It's so reassuring. Oh, no, I'm not going to the hospital. I turned my head and took a closer look at them. It's so pretty. One by one, they are all beautiful, rich and capable. Woo woo. As the mother who created them, I am very pleased. Maybe it was because my eyes were too eager. Betty Shaw said, Sybil Hart, let's go back together if it's okay, and let my brother send us. Right. What did I write? The male protagonist drives a limited edition Maybach luxury car. You have to sit and sit. I grabbed Betty Shaw and said, okay, let's go home. Hiram Shaw wanted to say something, but I clapped his hand first, nodded lightly, and said, I understand, I'll solve it, don't worry. He glanced at Betty Shaw, hesitated, and said nothing. Our two big villas are on the same hill, and in the same villa area, and I stepped into the door of Hart's house, with my front foot and my back foot, and he cried, big garden, big house, what kind of life is this? This is the day of the gods. My aunt beckoned me to dinner, and at the dinner table I expressed to his parents that I wanted to cancel the engagement. Sybil Hart is the only child in the palm of the Hart family, and her parents love her so much that they don't blame her even if she gets engaged and gets out of the marriage. Sure enough, my father scolded me twice, and said he would go and talk to Shaw's house. Actually, it's my fault. The novels I wrote are all B. This is even more outrageous. The male and female protagonists love each other, trust each other, work together to solve all kinds of thorns and difficulties, and finally get the consent of their parents. Just about to become a family. The heroine died the day before the wedding. How did he die? Sybil Hart was killed in a car crash. Then the male protagonist became a widower and spent the rest of his life guarding his love for the female protagonist. It's also because my style of writing is too crazy, so the reading volume of the novel is very touching, and each chapter does not exceed 50 readings. Ha ha ha, there really is mine. But in other words, I'm Sybil Hart now. As long as I don't be a demon and don't hit people, then won't the heroine have nothing to do? By the way, solve the difficulties that will arise in the heroine's future life. It's easy to live to 40. I know the development of the plot, the characters' thoughts, and the logic of behavior. In this world, the creation mother is invincible. After eating, I lay down in my big bed. The toilet in this room is bigger than my entire rental house. What kind of female villain? I want to be a rich second-generation lady, and live a rich and idle life. It is known that the heroine is currently 25, and there are still 15 years before 40. Asking, Sybil Hart has so many assets. How can I squander it more reasonably? I can't spend less. Wronged myself. It can't be too much. After all, it will take 15 years. The main one is a long-term and stable spending. So I immediately went to find out about the physical condition of Hart's parents. Very good. The physical examination report is normal, and it is not a dream to work until 80. I thought that if my father went to Shaw's house to talk about getting out of the marriage, Hiram Shaw would definitely be 100 willing. So I didn't ask about the follow-up, and tacitly assumed that my marriage contract with Hiram Shaw was not counted. I threw myself into the career of a full-time daughter. Greet your parents with warmth. Be well-behaved and cute in front of people. Sybil Hart's character is a much-loved and brutal and willful, paranoid lady with no one in her eyes. At that time, she didn't have a good level of writing, and her ability to shape the character was not enough. So she was written as a proper villain tool, and now the role is not difficult to adapt. Even his mother, after seeing her daughter become docile and obedient, was so moved that she sent me a few more pocket money. Rich people express love so perfunctory. Fortunately, I'm superficial, just right. After many days of eating and waiting to die, Hiram Shaw came to me. I was feeding the ponies on my father's private stable, and when he arrived, he looked strange and said to me, "I'm not going to get married, boy." I almost slapped the pony in the face. I touched his face, then his forehead, and the back of his head. I can't figure it out. How can I say such a thing with a handsome son, who hasn't bumped into it? Don't say that, it doesn't match your personality. With an unnatural expression, he slapped my hand away and said, "I'm serious." I withdrew my hand, and Lola "No. What are you trying to do? Haven't you always wanted to be with me? Wouldn't it be nice that we could get engaged?" Yo. According to what you say, I couldn't refute it anymore, because I had a point in mind. Remembers that in the novel, engagement is a major node in the relationship between the male and female protagonists. Hiram Shaw kept wanting to cancel the engagement, but Sybil Hart disagreed and threatened with corporate cooperation, which led to a stalemate between the two until the day of the engagement banquet, when Hiram Shaw received the news that Betty Shaw had fainted, leaving everyone behind and rushing to her side. Then he took care of Betty Shaw in the hospital for several days, and the female protagonist finally saw the male protagonist's mind in getting along, and also understood her heart, and then the two complained to each other and determined the relationship. According to what you say, there is some truth to it. I say, I think it's probably because the novel needs to go down according to the big frame. That's why the male protagonist found me. That's why I will die. Things go on. After all, the engagement is an assist, and if you don't get engaged, you can't go to the main plot. Small. The need to say that the setting is reasonable is not so strong. It's okay no matter what, as long as it doesn't hurt the heroine's life. Feeling that my behavior was a little unexpected, he frowned. "What are you?" Because I suddenly remembered that I love you so much, I interrupted him. It's like the set character direction. I can't help it. I can't help myself. I have no other thought in my head than to love you. Just love you. Love you. Love you. It makes sense at any time. He was visibly speechless, because I saw him gritting his teeth. Although I set my soul according to my own ideas, it is written that they will break away from my intentions, and go from the initial setting to the path of the character itself. So in my opinion, the characters I wrote about are alive. This idea reached its peak when I came to the world of fiction. I will unconsciously look at the male and female protagonists with appreciative eyes, just like watching a flower bloom on the paper through my hand. At a dinner party, the male and female protagonists appeared together, and I don't know if I have a filter for them, but I feel like they all have light on them. The tassels of Betty Shaw's skirt swayed gently with her steps, like a fluttering butterfly. Her supple curls scattered behind her, and her fair arms held the straight and calm Hiram Shaw in a suit. I squinted as they walked past me hand in hand. Well, handicrafts and handicrafts of talented women. But maybe my gaze was too eager. Hiram Shaw arrived in front of me with a glass of wine and clinked glasses to herself. I glanced at him, and I have to say that he is very good looking. That is, the kind of eyebrows and eyes written in the text. The bridge of the nose is high, and the whole person looks stable and confident. I asked, "What's wrong?" "It's fine." He paused and added, "Can't I look for you if it's okay?" I thought about it. "It's not that it can't be. You're a little different," he said suddenly. "What's the difference?" "You don't like me that much." He looked at me with a look of confusion I hadn't seen before. "At least it's not what I knew." I blinked. So far in the novel, Sybil Hart has not done anything very excessive, although the male protagonist has rejected her pursuit, but the two will also greet each other politely. But like now, the male protagonist took the initiative to come over to talk, which is beyond my cognition. Oh, how could this be? I like you so much. I drank the wine from my glass. I'm just reserved and reserved. I'm shy. My love for you is very inward, but you have to believe me. So love you. His eyes narrowed, and his face was ugly. You've been touched by me, right? Truly, my love for you is evident from the sun and the moon. True love. True love. Oh, my dear male protagonist's eldest son. Who can say that a mother's love is not love? I think the original Sybil Hart was too subtle. As I had only said a few words, Hiram Shaw slipped away with a strange look. Looking at his back, I smiled in my heart. The dinner party is really not the occasion for me to participate in as a wastewood loser. But my parents were still there, so I couldn't leave. But I was so bored that I pulled Betty Shaw, who was also bored, to chat. Girl, no. Betty Shaw, how are you doing? Betty Shaw smiled whimsily. My family arranged for me to work on a new project, and I'm still in the learning stage. The two collaborated on a new project, and the Shaw family invested a lot of money. And Sybil Hart also used this cooperation to threaten the male protagonist with her engagement. Betty Shaw leaned in with me. Sybil Hart, do you think my brother is weird? What's strange? He suddenly fell in the living room some time ago, and it took him a long time to recover. And then he rushed out of the house to find you. When was I at the racecourse? Yes, something is wrong with him. Is it because I have been abroad for too long and have become estranged from him? Was coerced by the plot? He was not happy, but he said that he would not withdraw from the marriage. And everyone felt that there was something wrong with their brains, and it was normal that something was wrong. I comforted, it's okay, he may be stressed, and many people are prone to perversion with a lot of money. Later, the male and female protagonists were leaving, so I said hello to my parents, and went out of the dinner hall with the male and female protagonists. Hart's car was delayed, so I got into the male protagonist's car. I remembered the car would break down at the next intersection and Hiram Shaw would notify the driver at home to pick it up. When the male and female protagonists get out of the car, there will be a speeding vehicle like a mad cow rushing towards the female protagonist. The car was arranged by Sybil Hart, and the heroine was fine. The only difference is that I'm also in the car. Tell me, when I was writing the article, why couldn't I get through the car accident? But since the heroine won't have anything to do, then I'm relieved. The car turned off at the next intersection, and I got out of the car with the male and female protagonists. And when Hiram Shaw was on the phone, I saw a car not far away with high beams driving towards us in a rampage. Betty Shaw, watch out. The car was going too fast, and I shouted anyway to be on the safe side. Betty Shaw screamed and ran away. Then I realized something was wrong. No, the car was arranged by Sybil Hart the day before the dinner, but now I am Sybil Hart. I didn't arrange it. So what the hell is this car? It's really an evil one. I have to go to the plot, right? The car was getting closer and closer, and I was very sad to find that it seemed to be coming for me. Hey, the rules say that players are not allowed to commit suicide, so is it a violation for the character to die in an accident? Hey, a figure lunged at me, the sound of car horns, men's rapid panting, the sound of crashing. Hiram Shaw protected me underneath me, his expression a little angry. The car crashed into the green belt on the side of the road, but fortunately no one was injured. Hiram Shaw pulled me up from the ground and said angrily, "Don't hide when the car comes. Just look, you can really do it." I smiled. It's okay, I'm scared to death. He looked me up and down, and when he was sure he was okay, he closed his eyes and laughed heavily. Yes, it's okay, or I'd be dead. I stepped forward and pretended to worship. I'm glad I had you. He turned his face away from me. Brother, the driver ran away. Call the police. Hiram Shaw's face sank. Someone needed to take notes, so I went straight to the police. And after 2 steps Hiram Shaw followed. I'll come with you when I came to you. I looked at him. You just fell, and fell stupidly. Can this come out of your mouth? Betty Shaw, I haven't gone back yet. He finally couldn't hold back, glared at me fiercely, and stepped forward to pull the door of the police car open. You were the one who almost died. Betty Shaw is fine. The driver will be there shortly. I got into the car and sighed. You say that? No wonder I'm on you. I've been dreaming about it for so many years. I'm going to take you down. He sat in, closed the door, and casually answered, "That's good. You've taken it now, fiancé." This sentence is too level. I was stunned for a moment. Then he was amused by his own reaction. His setting is to like the heroine. It's to leave everything on the day of the engagement. Run to the heroine. What do I compare with him? Yes, Sybil Hart's temporary wish has come true. When I finished the transcript, I saw him sitting on a chair outside, and the light of the Public Security Bureau was shining straight down, shining on the deep eyebrows and eyes, illuminating a row of eyelashes. Look at what? He asked. I shook my head twice and said, Beauty is wrong. He stood up and smiled. I pointed to the corner of his mouth. I praise you. You smile so disdainfully. The corners of the mouth are closed, which is not in line with the person's design. He put away his smile and walked out with me. Father had already made people wait outside. We didn't say a word all the way, and when we arrived at Hart's house, Hiram Shaw got out of the car with me. I'll tell my uncle about today's events. He looked at me. I'm afraid you won't be able to tell. What do you mean? I can't understand something. Forget it. Don't bother to care. I nodded, and walked out into the yard on my own. Okay. He followed me, silently to a pool, and he said, "What kind of person am I? Isn't that a revelation? I have a few words in my head, calm, strong, confident, determined. Is that so?" He walked up to me quickly. "Sybil Hart has loved it for so many years. Are those 4 words? Of course it's not all," I whispered. "It may not be very specific in the novel, but I wrote a biography of Sybil Hart at the time. Her feelings for Hiram Shaw. There are support points. Because of the good relationship between the 2 families and the busy parents of both families, Sybil Hart would be sent to Shaw's house by his parents when he was a child. 3 children grew up together. Betty Shaw is adopted for no reason, and no grudges from the older generation. It was just abandoned in front of Shaw's house on a snowy night. Betty Shaw was 2 years old when Sybil Hart was 2 years old, and Hiram Shaw was 3 years old, and she didn't know where she came from until she went abroad. But Sybil Hart and Hiram Shaw knew it all along. Sybil Hart knew she wasn't his own sister, but she was closer to Hiram Shaw. But why did Hiram Shaw think of Betty Shaw first in everything? Why did he know everything? But he was still so good to her. Obviously, they met first. Obviously, they seemed to be more compatible. She doesn't understand Hiram Shaw's behavior, but she is jealous that Betty Shaw can get Hiram Shaw's attention. When she grew up, she understood her heart through Hiram Shaw's heart for Betty Shaw. She also wants to get such a preference, and be the only one like this. In my opinion, you have stood at the top of the pyramid since you were a child, and you are kind, strong and confident. Then the person you will like, and who is suitable for you should be someone who is gentle, firm, and can stand with you. Looking sideways at him, he happened to be looking at me too. I looked him in the eye. I thought, I think, I'm the one who's on par with you. Who's on par? Who can appreciate each other? The next day, Hiram Shaw told me the results of the investigation. It is the father's malicious revenge against the family. Vicious business wars. Boring plot stuffing. Fine, I accept it. However, the father blamed himself very much, thinking that it was his own reasons that caused his daughter to be in danger. So he arranged 2 bodyguards and bought a manor for his daughter abroad. I cried again, flying around my own estate on my own plane. I have never dreamed of such luxury. That's good, I said, swiping the interior of the new villa on my phone. I think if there was a mirror in front of me, my eyes would be bright and reflective. Not really. Hiram Shaw was on the sidelines, looking unimpressed. I was stimulated by his attitude. Tut tut. Do you know why you are so rich and handsome? Do you know why both of them like you? And not because of me. I myself am unemployed, struggling on the line of abject poverty. But I have brought you wealth. That money is not money, and you don't know how to cherish it. It's better to give birth to you than to give birth to a mouse. He didn't look at me lightly, and his tone was unclear. Could it be because of you? If you ask, then I'll be overwhelmed by you. Oops. I picked up my phone again and tried to change the subject. I can't go shopping in my big field. I came to you for the same thing. I was in charge of the cooperation before, and now you have to hand it over to Betty Shaw to follow up, and you still need your company to hand it over. I gave him an okay. It's just some permission issues. Contact me when you come. It's pretty reliable. I stretched the okay gesture forward. Got it. He pressed my hand in front of him and chuckled. Gone. I didn't expect that just writing a short sentence in the novel. The 2 companies involved in the industry are all over the country. It would be so professional and comprehensive in the world of novels. Because I'm in the department of collaborative projects now, I don't even know what they ask me. This is beyond the level of my writing and real-world qualifications. Betty Shaw was a little anxious, and at the end of the question, her tone became quicker. Sybil Hart, this is quite important. You think about it again. I blushed in my frustration. Okay, I'll take a look. A slender hand tapped lightly on the table, and when I looked up, he said, let's go eat first. Betty Shaw flipped through the information in her hand. Sybil Hart, you and my brother go eat first. I'll sort out the things at hand first. I followed Hiram Shaw with my head down. The dishes are all ready, and I'm still a little not interested. It can't affect the heroine's follow-up work. Eat, he said. I sighed, looked at the food in front of me, took 2 bites, and exclaimed, I'm a little hungry, so you should eat well. Knobby fingers hold the cup against the lips. It's fine. I've also been involved in some of the projects, and if I have any questions about the future, I can get to Betty Shaw, and I can learn more about everything. Seeing me looking at him, he drank the water and said, you don't have to dwell on this. Hey, don't say it, don't say it. Hiram Shaw's play is really heartwarming. Then why did you call me here? I said awkwardly. Because I'm a little curious about you, and I think you're interesting. I vaguely felt that something was wrong, and tilted my head to look at him. He said, you can understand that I just found a reason to get close to you several times. It's easy to misunderstand this. I tried to decipher. What do you mean? Is there a possibility? He continued. Is it that I like you? It's pretty straightforward. Big brother, can you tell me this? You're getting the wrong person. He didn't look like a fake. My heart is beating so fast. But in a few months, we will be engaged. One by one. No, no. As a mother, I want to break this atmosphere. It's your destiny to fall in love with your relatives. Hiram Shaw. He gritted his teeth. You're so good. I know that characters will have their own development, but the setting from the beginning cannot be changed. Just like the name and gender, it is a factory setting given by God. Jumping out of the initial character setting and liking something that is impossible in genes and instincts. Will this happen? I don't think so. He is a character in the novel, and he is the main perspective from which the story unfolds. If the soul of the text changes, then the novel, the plot, and the platform, all 3 will be unnecessary. But he didn't seem to be talking nonsense. What's going on here? Is it Hiram Shaw's cause? His character awakened, and his mind broke through the setting. I can't figure it out. Do evil. What is he doing? I couldn't sleep for several nights in a row, just thinking about the problem. On this day, the parents of the 2 families urged us to choose the dress for the engagement. I'm not enthusiastic about that. Anyway, it's just going through the motions. When I was in the car, my face was facing forward, but my eyes were unconsciously looking to the left. While waiting for the traffic light, Hiram Shaw turned to look at me, and tapped his right index finger on the steering wheel. You can see it openly. Heh. I was grabbed by the bag, sat up straight, and looked ahead. No, I didn't. What do you have to tell me? I shook my head, and then nodded again 2 seconds later. I wanted to ask you. The green light was just on. He smiled, turned his head to look ahead. The car was moving, and he said, you ask. This time, his eyes narrowed a little when he smiled, and he should have smiled sincerely. I thought to myself, like, are you having a problem with your brain? Heaven can tell. I really want to ask. There was a long silence. He pursed his lips and tried to say something, but he didn't, and after taking a deep breath, changed the question. Have you felt like something was wrong with you lately? Ideologically, spiritually, have there ever been cases where 2 voices in your head have quarreled? Nope, he said in a serious tone. No other questions. Oh, no, I replied. Well, he laughed angrily at me. He may have seen that I was not interested in picking out clothes, so he just told the person in charge to find the most suitable and beautiful one. The person in charge was in a cold sweat, and it took a long time to find one for me to see. I just affirmed, that's it. Sitting back in the car, he joked, are you a little perfunctory? I shrugged. People are beautiful. Everything is beautiful. It's late, and at this point, there are usually no cars on the way home, but today there are many. Why are you all going to the mountains? It's said to be a meteor shower today. I swiped my phone and said excitedly, you want to see it? Yes. Don't you want to watch it? Isn't it almost home? Betty Shaw is not at home. It's because the male protagonist's setting is that he likes to look at the stars and the moon, and there are astronomical telescopes in the car and at home. So there will be meteor showers in the world of the novel. He turned a corner, and the car headed up the hill, then go, and see, all the way to the top of the mountain. There are already many people on the platform at the top of the mountain. We found a no-brainer corner, and spread a mat in a clearing under a tree, with binoculars on the side. Isn't it going to take a long time? I asked. It was very windy at the top of the mountain, and I grabbed my hair, and just wanted to tie it up with a hair tie, but some of it fell out of my hand, and I put it back together, and the wind blew on my face again. You turn around. Hiram Shaw took the scrunchie from my hand. I turned around and questioned, will you? He raised his hand and held his hair in his hand, and I couldn't feel his movements, only that he was very gentle. After a while, he let go of his hand. No. I stroked my tied hair and boasted, it's good. You have a bit of talent. It may be a little while. He answered my initial questions. I was wearing a skirt and he approached me, and put his coat over my legs. The wind was so strong, but I seemed to smell him. It smells good, like pine trees. I suddenly felt a little uncomfortable, and as he got closer, I unconsciously leaned back slightly. I think the amplitude of this recline is very small, but he seemed to see it. You don't have to worry too much. These are my thoughts. I'll just tell you directly. He sat down, his voice soft, as if to say something. I didn't expect it to upset you like this. Why? You've never paid attention to me before. The wind ruffled the corners of his clothes, and a few times, lightly touched my arm. I don't know if it's cold or something, but I feel a little uneasy. I find that you don't know you like me. I said that a long time ago. The expression on his face was arbitrary, and direct that he shouldn't have. It's like a misunderstanding that has been solved all along, and suddenly I find that the essence of the incident is very attractive. Oh, I see. Does this mean that he doesn't admire Sybil Hart? It's me. Is it possible that you think I'm different because I've always been able to understand your thoughts accurately lately? So I think I understand you. If so, then there is no way to make it clear. I do know all his thoughts, even better than he knows himself. No, it's not. It doesn't matter if you don't understand me. It's me who understands you. He frowned, as if disappointed, and emphasized, it's you who are special. I was keenly aware that my heart was skipping a beat. But there is no solution to this. I suppressed the throbbing in my heart, and made it the same as before. He has his direction. Even if there are some deviations now, there will always be a return to the established course. Touching the hearts of paper pieces is fruitless. Hiram Shaw was a frequent presence in my field of vision during this time. I call his behavior, beckoning cats and teasing dogs. It's weird that he always makes me have a lot to say, and what I say makes him laugh every time. So as time went on, I got used to him being around me. Would love to get along with him as well? Sometimes he would say with deep meaning, I always feel like you're still going to avoid me. I'll also laugh and fool. Give each other some space and mystery. Each such conversation ended with a slightly compromised look in his eyes, aggrieved and pitiful. I still remember that time at the top of the mountain. The wind was howling on a spring night. Meteors streak across the sky. I closed my eyes with a sense of ceremony, clasped my hands together, and said silently, all wishes come true. Money comes. When I opened my eyes, I saw him looking up at the night sky. The silhouette of his side face was handsome and three-dimensional, and at this moment, I felt silence, loneliness, and emptiness. I didn't see emotions in his eyes. Got a wish. Okay, won't you allow one? I don't have any wishes. It's coming. You promise? I give you my wish. I was stunned. He turned his gaze from the night sky to my face, usually sober and proud. His eyes are filled with a light watercolor beauty trick. It must have been a test for me, I said to myself. But you have to watch your heart. The days are in time for the scorching heat, and the chirping of cicadas. It hadn't rained for days, and I sat in the living room, watching the leaves outside the window dry and scorched by the sun. My mother has been visibly busy these 2 days. Hiram Shaw also appears less. All this tells me that the day of engagement is coming soon, right away. It made me irritated for no reason. I thought I might be unhappy in my heart, but I was holding back this emotion. There is no way. I can't change it. I can only accept it. The engagement reception was held at one of Shaw's resort hotels. Today's banquet had many prominent people in H City, and his mother was busy, greeting the guests. But when she came to see me in the lounge, she noticed. Why hasn't Betty Shaw arrived yet? I casually said. Maybe on the way. Also, it's about to rain, and the road must be blocked. I don't know how your dad picked the day. It was sunny before and after, and it rained today. I took my mother's hand and comforted me. Mom, it's raining on a good day. Yes, it's a good day. My mother took my hand and sat down, and looked at my face carefully, her eyes full of love. I obediently screamed, Mom. She stroked my hair and smoothed it gently, smiling at the corners of her mouth. But her voice choked. We Sybil Hart have grown up, and we are so beautiful. It's an atmosphere I can't resist. This is just an opportunity for the male and female protagonists to confirm their hearts in the novel. But for the mother, today is the day of her daughter's engagement. Mother's love is an eternally warm topic in my pen. Hey, Hiram Shaw is here. Mom won't tell you. She clapped my hand. You talk to Hiram Shaw for a while. Mommy, get busy. Thanks, Auntie. Hiram Shaw leaned against the door and saw his mother go out, and he came over and said, Sybil Hart is right. You look good in everything you wear. I agree. Yes, Sybil Hart has always had a clear idea of himself. He seemed to be in a good mood, and he looked at me, with appreciation in his eyes, and I counted down in my mind. 4, 3, 2, 1. His phone rang just in time. I pointed to the phone he was keeping on the table, and said in as relaxed a tone as possible, hurry up and answer the phone. I can't hear the caller's voice. Hiram Shaw's face turned ugly at a rate visible to the naked eye. Even his hands were shaking. I sorted out my grooming in front of the vanity mirror, so that I could solemnly face the development of the plot. As he put his phone down, I asked, is something wrong? Betty Shaw hasn't come yet. Is there some emergency? No, it's fine. The tone in which he spoke was still calm, but the final tremor still revealed his uncalm at the moment. Go out and find her. Seeing that he was still standing in place, I was afraid that he was worried about the situation here after he left. So I said half truthfully, I respect your decision. You don't have to worry about it here. I'm fine. You walk on the front foot, and I will go home on the back foot. Don't worry. Anyway, no matter what his answer was, push him out, and the door shut. Let out a long sigh. After changing into my gown, I smiled ugly at myself in the dressing mirror. Look, the plot, as long as it's already happening right in front of you, it's not so unacceptable. Lightning and thunder, wind and rain. It finally rained in H City, which had been sweltering for several days. A white light flashed, followed by a rumbling thunder. The overhead light flickered a few times, and the ZZ rang for a while, and then it stopped at all. I felt against the wall and walked in the direction of the door. The door was open from the outside. There was a faint light outside, and I was standing in the dimness, and Hiram Shaw was in the dim light. Light and shadow distinguish us. He walked in from the light. Why did you come back? Didn't take anything? I wasn't angry. Didn't I say, your industry is not good? Is it so easy to trip? Ignoring my complaints, he stepped forward and took my hand. In a solemn but brisk tone, Sybil Hart, are you going to elope with me? It's rare for him to be in such a state. It's like you've made some big decision. I ran after him, asking, where are you going? Betty Shaw doesn't care. How could he have come back like this? What about the plot? Wasn't he forced to go through the plot? No matter. He didn't look back. It's magical. I don't know how to describe the feeling. It was as if the characters on the page had broken free from the shackles of words, and held my hand without hesitation and in high spirits. He's not like Hiram Shaw anymore. It's not like Hiram Shaw as I wrote it. After the rain stopped, we drove to the beach. In the novel, this is the male protagonist's favorite place to go alone. It was already completely dark, and the sea was pitch black. It should look better during the day, right? I asked. It's a pretty good place, he commented. On the beach after the rain, the air smells moist. The sound of waves crashing against the reef in the night, and the lights of the water tower in the distance. I have a lot to say to him, a lot of questions to ask him, but here, and now, we have tacitly quieted down with each other and chosen to be silent. In this wordless atmosphere, I didn't feel embarrassed. This reminds me of what I saw on the internet before. Two people are in the best state together, and they are comfortable together. I don't know how long it was, but it was the first thing he said. What was your original name? Me. Hey, aren't you a fiction writer? What do you know? I don't know. He looked at me. What's your mission? Is it an assist for the male and female protagonists? Or let the heroine go to the end safely? Little brother, I'll admit you've guessed that you're not far from 10, but the platform gave me a hard and fast rule, that, I can't disclose everything. Don't ask. I looked like I couldn't say it. I'm not going to reveal anything. You didn't reveal it. I can prove it. I guessed it myself. He followed my words. No, I'm a little messy right now. How could he have guessed such an outrageous thing? I hesitated. I'm afraid not. You're too. No wonder Betty Shaw said something was wrong when you fell. I excitedly said. How do you know I'm an author? Of the less than 50 readings per chapter, I alone contributed 3/5. In this case, anyone who knows the plot better than me can only be the author. Speaking of reading, it's a bit of a shrimp and pig's heart. I laughed dryly. You like to read this kind of text. It's a little confusing. I don't read novels much, but this time I'm going to be selected by the platform first and then read the text. In order to familiarize myself with the plot, I read each chapter carefully. No wonder, two people are chosen to be in the same fiction world. It's fate, I thought. Isn't it against the law that we're talking like this? He shook his head. I've broken the rules. He said it wasn't his first time in fiction. The last time he was the second male, who was obsessed with the heroine. The platform gave him the task of erasing Sybil Hart at any cost. He did it, so the platform gave him another mission experience card. He chose the novel anyway. The platform agreed. This time he became Hiram Shaw. I didn't do it the last time. I changed the plot, and Sybil Hart had an accident under the chain reaction, and the platform was counted as my mission completed. The platform said that this mission will be randomly notified. As soon as I became Hiram Shaw, I was told the mission, to stop the engagement from being cancelled and move the plot forward. So I went to you. It dawned on me. No wonder you said you didn't want to get out of the marriage as soon as you came. And your eyes were weird. He nodded. The first time I saw Sybil Hart, I noticed that something was wrong, and I vaguely thought it was you. And it was only later that I was completely sure. I'm guessing your mission should be to protect the heroine or something. I was very happy at the time. My mission was accomplished, and your mission will not hurt you. I thought that during this time, I would be able to get to know me, and get to know me again. But I didn't expect there to be a second mission. I thought of his behavior in the break. Was that phone call just now? Yes. What's the second mission? He hooked my fingers. The platform said, at the engagement feast, at all costs, wipe out Sybil Hart. Seriously, I'm shaking with anger right now. What a lack of virtue, platform. I know I'm also from the real world, so why call another person to erase me? Wipe it out, obliterate. I hated and said. This broken platform also said that it is in the experimental stage, and I think it will be in the experimental stage in this life. Seeing that I was so angry, he laughed and whispered, don't be angry. I admit that I like his attitude, but I still whispered, I just said why did you take me out? It turns out that the platform lacks great virtue. I don't know what to do. I didn't do anything last time. Sybil Hart died, and I'm afraid it's the same this time. Even in a fictional world, I don't want to see you die. He took my hand and rubbed his knuckles lightly. I thought that the premise of the obliteration it said was at the engagement banquet. So if I take you out and get rid of the preconditions, you will be fine. Tickling fingers, I said. Thank you. I was also anxious at the time, but fortunately you're okay. He suddenly became serious. I said elopement. Isn't it quite romantic? Do you like it? Strange focus. It's kind of cute. I smiled and nodded in acknowledgement. It's quite romantic. So, what was your original name? He took a deep breath before asking. Is it Eric Kitto? I was shocked. How do you know? Do you know me? He breathed a sigh of relief. One word. My name is Andrew Tracy. When I first entered high school, I was second to last in the first row, and Andrew Tracy was the first to last. He always didn't seem to care much about anything. The grades are okay, and the life and work are okay. Everything is passable. You can get along well with anyone, but you can't play with anyone. In the beginning, I enjoyed observing him. At that time, I defined good and bad, black and white too obviously, thinking that being good with people is good, bad is bad, and for one thing, I will do it if I like it, and I will not do it if I don't like it, and I have never thought that there is a region outside the two poles. Oh, therefore, I am very interested in his policy of not rejecting those who come and leaving the world independent. Then he found out and asked me, what have you been glancing at me? I'm curious about you. I'll say it directly. Curious about what? I don't think you know anything from me. He thought it was funny, and the corners of his mouth went up. What's the difference? I was a little stupid at the time. I couldn't hear the sarcasm in human words, and I really thought about it. I don't feel like you're very happy. Oh, he propped his chin on his hand, as if he was a little interested. Tell me. Classmates said that he had a good temper, a good person, few words and easy-going, a solid family, and his parents didn't think much about him. There's really nothing that bothers him. I put my hand on the side to cover my face, and he approached and leaned his ear closer. I whispered, your eyes don't bend every time you laugh. For the first time in a long time, I saw that expression on his face, gloomy and ruffian. He leaned back, distancing himself from me. Your ability to observe and your stupidity stand out. His language is also quite outstanding, praising me and scolding me to come together. Later, after a long time at the back table, I found that he was still quite awkward. I hope that someone understands him, but I am afraid that others will understand him. After getting acquainted with it, I commented on it. It looks stable, but it's actually like a child. Most of the time, he ignores me, but he's a really nice guy. He would bring me breakfast, listen to my thoughts, and help me with my homework. I think I'm also a nice guy, and I'll take him to my house for dinner and tell nonsensical jokes. What I noticed was that he was very direct to me one day and said, can we skip that fried rice at noon today? I think it's so unpalatable. Oops. I patted him on the shoulder with relief. I'm glad that my child can finally express it directly. He pushed my hand away and said arrogantly, speechless. Once, a classmate who was a relative of Andrew Tracy's family told me that Andrew Tracy's parents went to the provincial capital to do business when he was very young and put him in a relative's house. When I asked him if he would like to live at his uncle's house, he said yes. When he was older, they took him to the provincial capital, but he was too busy with work to take care of him. Asked if he could take care of himself. He said yes. Later, because of academic problems, he was sent back to H City to study in high school. I asked him if he could accept it, and he said yes. After such a toss, his parents are now divorced during this time. Ask him who he wants to talk to, and he says yes. He didn't seem to be emotional. It doesn't matter whether he is willing or wronged. He just thinks, it's okay. My mother is not from H City, so she may go back after the divorce. When I learned about this, I wanted to ask him if he would have to transfer schools if the award was given to his mother. He's just getting used to it. I'm still thinking about words along the way. I'm afraid I'm going too far. After all, it was his suffering, and I not only didn't care about it, but I also asked questions, which was really impersonal. But when I got to him, I didn't say anything, and my eyes turned red. He sat down at the flower bed downstairs, and pulled me to sit down. What's wrong with you? It was fine that he didn't speak, but when he did, I felt even more uncomfortable. I started crying. What are you crying about? He scrambled to wipe my tears. Obviously he is the saddest now, and he still wants to comfort me. I was even sadder. Don't cry. At that time, according to the eyewitness, who was also my mother, who was also home from grocery shopping, the scene was chaotic for a while. I cried like I had lost my money. He panicked as if he had lost the money. After listening to me talk about the cause and effect, he couldn't laugh or cry. He pressed his palm to my cheek, and wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes with his fingertips. Warm and gentle. I'm going to follow my mom. He spoke at a very slow pace, trying to make things as clear as he could to me. When they asked me, they just went through the motions, and they didn't care what my answer or choice was, because they had already discussed the result. My nose edged. How can this be? He wiped my tears and comforted. That's how they are. Don't be sad. You see I'm fine. I sobbed. If you're upset, you can tell me. Actually, I've been used to it since I was a child, and I don't care more than pessimism. Is it the same this time? It's different. He quickly denied it, as if muttering, this time is different. Andrew Tracy in his memory, and Hiram Shaw in front of him are intertwined. It was then that I realized that every unclear word he had said to me earlier was what I had said to him. We all used the same words to explore each other. We used a chat app to get in touch at the time. But when we grew up, we started using another app. Our phone numbers changed, and we were busy with my studies and looking for a job after graduation. Until this reunion, we met again after many years, and I didn't recognize him. Why don't you tell me in the morning? He explained, there are rules. If I say it, I'll break the rules. And if I'm forced to go offline, then I won't be able to find you. All right, he makes sense to say that. What will happen if you violate the law now? The platform will arrange for me to go out. I don't understand. I am at odds with Andrew Tracy's mission. There will always be one who will be arranged by the platform because he can't complete the task. If we didn't recognize each other, how wonderful it would have been for us to accomplish our tasks. It's not a virtual mission experience at all. It's more like raising goo. It has absolutely nothing to do with reality. Unaffected by time and regulated by the law, it will not die. And the biggest cost of failure is nothing more than returning to the real world. There will be money to take when it is done. A coliseum with no limits and constraints, no taboos, and no bottom line. The platform stood in God's perspective and watched the insects bite each other. Hey, I'll just say it's lacking in virtue. What do you think? He pinched my face. Come on, I'll figure it out for you. I blinked. What? Think about it. If you just want to complete your task, she can live to 40 with the male master, and you are with the male owner. Together she can live to 40, not to mention whether she is doing well this day or not, whether she has love or not, she can reach 40, right? I thought for a moment. Yes, so, if I hadn't been kicked out for a foul, then we could have fallen in love in the novel, wouldn't we? That's what I said. I frowned, puzzled. But you didn't commit a foul. Yes, that's the next question. He laughed so hard that his eyes turned into a crescent moon and his tone was seductive. In other words, if we can be together in the novel, then we can be together in reality, right? You know how to draw inferences. I deliberately joked. Whoa, you're so much more likable than when you were studying. Yes, he nodded, his dark eyes looking at me for a moment. Do you like it? He's like a puppy. No more teasing him, I admitted. I like it. So can we be together? He took my hand and drew closer. The gaze moves down from the eyes, through the bridge of the nose, and stops at the lips. Without waiting for me to answer the last question, Eric Kitto, can I kiss you? I finally felt a little embarrassed, and hung my head down, trying to hide the heat on my face. He smiled and took me in his arms. The sea breeze blows, and it is full of summer breath. Half a day. Yes, we hid outside for 2 days. Andrew Tracy's words. It's not that I don't dare to go back, or I feel troublesome. I don't know what trouble he felt. His mother, Betty Shaw. I don't think they're as troublesome as me. In just 2 days, I have fully mastered his practical skills for getting along. Like what? Andrew Tracy, you smile so well. Can you help me get the milk tea on the table outside? What's the matter? I have a boyfriend who can do it. Can't I? What? Such a beautiful necklace. You said you would buy it for me when you go back to real life. Oh my God, how could I have such a good boyfriend? If nothing else, Andrew Tracy is easy to coax. On the 3rd day, I was woken up by a phone call from my mother, who told me to hurry home, saying that the Shaw family was already there, and that Hiram Shaw was on his way. I hung up the phone and saw that Andrew Tracy had sent me a message half an hour ago. The platform asked me to go to Hart's house, saying that there was a reasonable plan to quit the novel, and told me to go to the plot. I will probably also inform you that you will go, when you wake up. I also want to see how this plot goes. Andrew Tracy didn't drive, and I thought I would have to wait for a taxi, so I drove his car. Passing through a small road, the driveway is lined with large trees, and some branches have extended into the road. I saw a street sign that read, Jinxie Road, Betty Shaw's Way West. Some of my distracted ways of choosing names. It is on this road that Sybil Hart is written about in the novel, who deliberately murders Betty Shaw. Betty Shaw will be fine this time. The midsummer sun was scorching, but on this road, the lush foliage blocked most of the light, and only the dots of light shone on me, which was a little shady. Bang! A loud sound came from the wheels, followed by the sharp braking of the car. Since it wasn't my own car, I drove very slowly, and made sure nothing came out of the way. But such a big movement can't be done by a large dog. It can only be people. Unless it's me and the platform that were crazy. It can't be an accident. A thought flashed through my mind. No way. I hurriedly got out of the car, but my legs went limp, walking over with the car on his feet. When he saw the people on the ground, he instantly lost all his strength and collapsed to the ground. The storyline forms a bizarre connection at this moment. Andrew Tracy needs to exit through the plot. The platform needs to find a reasonable way for his exit, and the plot needs to move forward with the established development. The female villain kills the protagonist, and the novel ends. Congratulations to players for completing the mission. The bonus and the new quest card have arrived. Do you want to choose a new novel to enter? When I opened my eyes, it was dark all around. An icy AI voice came from all around me. I shudder with anger when I think of Andrew Tracy lying under the car, his flesh blurred. You, I yelled. What kind of weird setting are you? Assign contradictory tasks to two people so that we can kill each other without knowing it. I thought it wouldn't answer me, but after a long time, it says, this is a game that is a virtual experience. I retorted. Experience what? Experience the irrationality of the mission and the perversion of the platform. Nope, it coldly explains. Players experience the mission, and the customer audience experiences the plot. I couldn't hold back and said a lot of national scolding. This does not harm the player itself, and it will not affect real life. And there is a bonus for completing the task. There are many players who volunteer to participate, and the registration is intense. It is unmoved. The new mission card has arrived. Do you want to choose a new novel to enter? Indeed, not every player will encounter me and Andrew Tracy. In their opinion, the characters they face are all virtual paper people, and there is no psychological burden to complete the task, and there is no time cost. But I already know everything, and this game is unacceptable to me. I don't want to be involved anymore. I replied. Are you sure? This time you are involved in the mission of the highest attention, and the scene where you determine your identity gets the most praise. If you continue to participate, the bonus will be very rewarding. Live tipping. Right. Outrageous and down to earth. But I can't stand this feeling of my lover being killed by myself. Yes, sure, I'm quitting. I met Andrew Tracy the day after I returned to reality. He drove overnight from a neighboring city. As soon as we met, he wanted to hug me, but I took the first step to hold his face. It's different from high school. It's more handsome. He allowed me to pinch my face, and pecked me on the lips while I wasn't paying attention. I asked him, do you know that I wrote the novel? Yes. The platform selected me, and then I stumbled upon it, while looking for a novel to read. Just look at the author's name, and you'll know it's you. Yes, my pen name is my original name. Don't you think it's amazing to find out that I'm also in the novel? He nodded and said, I want to go back to H City after graduation, but I heard that you stayed in S. Before I even inquired about you, you appeared in front of me by yourself, and I was pleasantly surprised. It turned out that he wanted to come to me. The joy in my heart spread. He was looking at me, his eyes burning, and after a moment he lowered his head to kiss me. Then I pushed him away. Looking at his stunned expression, I formally said, let me tell you, you have to think about it. I don't have a job at the moment. My parents are in H City, and I need to find a job and pay rent. Once you add the economic pressure of reality, the character will definitely not be as lively as in the novel. You will find that I am realistic, wooden, and hesitant. Can you accept it? The days in the novel don't have any responsibilities and pressures, and you don't care about anything. You can pat your ass and return to reality anyway. So when I was Sybil Hart, I wanted to play a play. But now that he's back, he'll soon see that I'm different from what I was in the novel. I don't want him to be with me, without knowing the difference. I paid attention to his expression. He was stunned at first, then reacted and smiled, and hugged me. Then you have to think about it. I'm not Hiram Shaw. I can't give you the life in the book. Bad personality, average relationship with parents, weak people, eccentric and withdrawn. You said before that Hiram Shaw is strong and confident, and will appreciate gentle, firm people. I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm dull and gloomy, and I like you when you're warm and bright. Woo woo. My heart is so soft now. I poked my head out of his arms, and looked him in the eye. You're good. You've been good before. In the future, you will see a lot of my usual hidden and covered shortcomings, but I still want to change our relationship and want to be with you. So I'll tell you my truest self. I feel like we're evenly matched. We're on equal footing, and we appreciate each other. Of course, the decision is yours. I buried my head back in. Listen to the sound of his heartbeat. Boyfriend, are you going to dinner together? The end.